I grew up during World War II, and your life was a lot different. Food was hard to get, going places was hard to go to, and things like that were going on. And I was also very interested in watching what was going on in the war itself, and that also helped me to do what I was going to be doing in the future. Of course, we had to be very careful about, you couldn't have lights on outside, and even in driving your car, you had to have your headlights all covered up, just a little opening, so just a little bit of light sticking out. That's the way it was, and it was very interesting, really. And then I remember the day that the Japanese hit Pearl Harbor. I remember my dad, he was unbelievable. You have to be prepared to put up with what happens, see the good part of it, just whereas if we go along and do things the way we're supposed to do it, you have a good life.
Freedom is the song that we sing as we march on.
Howard, thank you so much for joining us for this interview, for the road to greatness. It means so much for me to be able to sit down with you and somebody that has served in both the Korean War and also Vietnam War. So if you don't mind, just start telling us and the viewers a little bit about you and your service.
Well, first of all, I'm 90 years old now, so unfortunately, I could just sit back and watch things happening. I enjoyed a lot of the things that I did because I've always been somebody who loved going places and seeing what's going on. And a lot of the things that I did was to go around various parts of the world, and whatever I hauled there, is what they put me. So it was just a matter of, okay, let's go. And that's the way it was. And unfortunately, a lot of guys can't put up with it. They can't put up with the fact that other people are going to control you. And you're going to be kind of just making sure that you do what you're supposed to do. And that has a lot to do with it. The way things are going right now in the United States, I think it's going very well. Unfortunately, there are other people that are not putting up with it right now, and that's the bad part of it. But like I say, I just loved what I did, and like I say, it was a matter of going to Europe or wherever, where things are supposed to go. That's the way it was.
Right. And so you say that's the way it was. One thing I learned about you when we first met was that you grew up you were a kid when World War II was going on.
Yes, I was.
Can you talk to us? What was that like? I mean, we interviewed a World War II veteran right before this episode, and now we're talking to somebody that actually grew up when you were about 12 years old or so in World War II. So tell us a little bit about what that was like.
Well, I was born on January 15th, 1936. So yes, I grew up during World War II. And your life was a lot different. Food was hard to get. Going places was hard to go to. Things like that were going on. And I was also very interested in watching what was going on in the war itself, and that also helped me to do what I was going to be doing in the future. Like even food, you couldn't necessarily always get the food. And I remember my dad had a friend that worked in a store, so he would kind of talk to the guy, and we'd go in there, he'd have stuff put away for us a little bit, and we got along with it. And things were a lot cheaper then, too. For example, I remember going to the store and getting a loaf of bread was 8 cents.
Wow.
Think about it, 8 cents.
Can't get anything for 8 cents now.
No, I mean,
they don't even make a penny anymore.
Yeah, now, $4 or $5 for a loaf of bread for 8 cents back when I was just a kid, and that's the way things are. And of course, we had to be very careful about, you couldn't have lights on outside, and even in driving your car, you had to have your headlights all covered up and just a little opening, so just a little bit of light sticking out, and that's the way it was, and it was very interesting, really, and I remember seeing it and looking at it and watching things how it went, and then I remember the day that the Japanese hit Pearl Harbor. Oh, God, I remember that. And I remember my dad, he was just like, he was unbelievable. He was working on things that would not necessarily allow him to go because he had to stay home and do the things. So things were a lot different.
Did your relationship with your dad inspire you to join the military?
Yes, it did, because when I was a kid, I was learning how to fly, and I was mostly flying seaplanes, and that's what I loved to do. And I remember, saying to my dad one day, I said, he was home, so I said, just watch, I'll be up there. And I did. I went low over the house and
Wow.
made noise and turned around and flew over the house a number of times. And I did that with other people too that I knew. And it was unbelievable. So I'm 90 years old now. So well over 70 years ago, I was flying seaplanes.
Okay, so can you talk to us a little bit about your service? Somebody that fought in both Korea and Vietnam, I believe it's such an honor to be sitting here. And I know you were a pilot. Can you kind of talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I flew a lot of things. And the interesting part of the thing is, when I was about 3 years old, and I guess I was about that tall, was the first time I ever was in an airplane. My father had a friend that had a seaplane, and he put us in the plane, and the guy took us for a flight, my sister and myself. My sister was terrified. I loved it. Just looking out the window, I was like, wow, I love this. So what happened was when I became a teenager, I was taking flying lessons. Got a pilot license, became a pilot, and figured, well, when I joined the Navy, wow, this is great. I loved mostly when we were flying the 4-engine transports, because we were always going places. I remember they go in there and say, well, all right, you're going to be going to Frankfurt, Germany. Okay, we go to Frankfurt, Germany. You're gone for the better part of a week. And of course, you're there for a couple of days and having fun, and then you come back, and then, well, you got to go to North Africa, or go to North Africa, and it was great. It was just
Loved it.
Yeah, it was fantastic. It was just absolutely fantastic.
What advice would you give men that are thinking about joining the service, like a young man, or what's your viewpoint on that as somebody that's served first?
Well, my whole thing is, like, number one, be prepared to people, somebody that's in controlling everything, because you have to be that. I remember one time we were going to the West Coast, and I had a whole plane full of rockets and all kinds of ammunition and stuff like that. It was just unbelievable.
Right.
Another time you're taking people someplace. It was just great. And you're flying all kinds of, in the morning, you can fly in the afternoon, you're flying at night, just flying early in the morning when it's not even light yet. And you just have to learn all the different ways you do things.
Yeah.
And
Pilot, it's definitely a passion. I come from a lineage of my grandfather was a pilot, also Korean War. My father's a pilot, so it is a absolute, I mean, they love it. It's a passion. You know, it's a lifestyle for sure.
right, it's the same thing. It's just you have to be prepared to put up with what happens, and see the good part of it. You know, and just you can't turn around and say, "Well, I don't want anybody in this plane as a pilot," you know, or as a passenger. You know, no, you just take them.
Yeah, what I'm hearing you say is that you have to be okay with authority,
Right.
right? And
Yes.
I think a lot of the younger generations are that we see now is there's maybe a lot of resistance to authority, right? People aren't very used
Right.
to how it used to be back then when men would lead, you know, more and we'd see men step up more and stuff like that. And nowadays we kind of see a little bit of
Well, that's
the
why you have to
opposite.
get used to the fact that, you know, the people have to tell you what to do, and you have to do what's right, and you'll have a great time. You really will. And you know, I remember some of the trips that we made. My God, it just, you know, 10, 12 hours. You're still in the air and just unreal. You know, it just
So, last question for you. What makes America great?
the fact that people like us are willing to do what's right, and you're willing to go along with what is happening, and so on, and just realize what goes on. If you have to turn around and argue with everything and not go along with it, you're not going to do it. You're not going to do a good job, and your country's going to go downhill. I mean, look what happened here when you just turned around and said, "Okay, yeah, anybody in this world that wants to come into this country, yeah, come on in," you know.
Right.
And look what's happened. People getting murdered, people getting robbed, you know, various things happening. Whereas if we go along and do things the way we're supposed to do it, you have a good life.
Which is exactly why we're filming this documentary, is to show that, you know, what makes America great is core values.
Right.
And that starts with the individual, right? That starts with the citizenry.
Right.
The individuals, the American people, we the people, having core values and being able to stand up for what is right.
In fact, one of the things that I was doing, I was teaching for a while, and it was almost 2 hours for lunch, and I had a friend of mine, and we would go and we'd rent an airplane and just go for a flight, and we'd take other people that we were working with, and we'd take them flying over. Just, I mean, all this type of stuff. You just make the most of it and just enjoy it, and you know,
Yeah.
enjoy the fact, but you make it so that's legal and right.
Hey, we're on the same page. There's one last thing that I like to say to anybody who served, especially in your generation, which is welcome home.
Oh yeah,
Appreciate
I'm
you.
home.